Now, joining me to discuss this is a former Armed Forces Minister, which is, I think, pretty relevant, Lord Andrew Robathan. Andrew, tell me, explain to me, how is it that under Conservative Prime Ministers since 2010, we've slashed the armed forces to the extent that we have?
Well, first, can I confess that I was a minister in 2010 in the Defence Review. I nearly resigned, and I was told by a friend, "Don't be so damn stupid, if you resign, they'll just put somebody else in who won't." But it's not been just since 2010, it's been since 1990. That 30 years.
Options for change. John
30
Major.
years we have spent the peace dividend time and time again. Now, I was in the army in the 1980s, and I spent a year looking east to the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet hordes. And we had, as Dan said, we had 55,000 troops there facing that way. Tanks galore, fighter aircraft, the lot. We've wasted them. We got rid of them. Now, change needs to happen. I don't deny that at all. But we've whittled the army down and the Navy and the Air Force far too far, and we're in a ridiculous situation. We have a war going on in Europe on our doorstep, and we are still, as we speak, reducing the number of troops, aircraft
So
and ships.
why is your party doing it?
I don't speak for my party. I have been banging on.
But it's your party that's
I know.
doing
I
it.
have been banging on ad nauseam in the House of Lords about it. I think it's absolutely bonkers. We need to realise that this is the most dangerous time in our lives since 1963. Probably the most dangerous time for in most of your viewers' lives. This is shockingly dangerous, and we are still cutting our forces.
Right, so,
and that matters much more than spending money on other issues.
So, is my first point correct?
Yes.
That there is a subplot here from Dannett?
I think it's a subplot. I think I don't think it's coordinated. We all can see.
All right.
Not enough money has been spent on defence.
As for the threat from Putin, now we know he's got this sort of czarist dream of bringing this concept of Greater Russia back together. Is he a threat to NATO countries?
Oh, well, you know...
Is he a rational player?
The 30s is a good analogy. And we need to remember that Hitler told us what he was going to do, and he did it. Slaughter all the Jews. That's what he's put in Mein Kampf. What we have here is Putin, who said what he wants to do. He wants to expand Russia. He wants to take over the Baltic states again. He wants to, whatever he wants in the east, probably Poland, the west in Poland. But he's not rational, I'm afraid. He may be very ill. Nobody really knows. But he's not rational. He's a dictator, and he has nuclear weapons, and this should frighten everybody.
Are we not in danger of escalating and provoking Putin even further?
Sorry, did we provoke him to invade Ukraine?
No, I'm asked. When you have a conflict, very often both sides escalate the language and it ends with mistakes being made. Are we right at this moment in time to say we're putting 300,000 troops on red alert?
I think we're absolutely right, and I'm afraid, going back to the analogy, we have Macron cozying up to Putin, saying, oh, well, perhaps we can save his face and whatnot. Just remember Daladier, the French Prime Minister, at 1938 in Munich, where they told the Czechs they had to give away the Sudetenland, and that ended well.
Yeah, so you see an analogy between
There's
that
an analogy.
and Donbass.
I hope it's not exact. I don't want a Third World War, but there is a huge analogy. Yeah. And when Ben Wallace talks about the whiff of Munich, he's absolutely right. Okay. We need to be strong, because I'm sure you know that in the Fulton, Missouri speech in 1946, Winston Churchill, having talked about the Iron Curtain, said, having worked with our allies, the Russians, over the last 5 years, or 4 years, whatever it was, I can tell you there's one thing they respect, and that's strength, particularly military strength. And they went on and said there's one thing they despise, and that's weakness, particularly military weakness. And that's what we and NATO and the West as a whole have shown.
And Germany, of course, still funding the war.
Hopeless.
Still funding the war, and Italy to a certain extent as well.
And war is painful.
So does NATO, and we know that some of the newer members of NATO, like Poland, are genuinely and deeply committed to it. Huge question marks around France, Germany and their commitment to any of this. But the big one, of course, is America. I felt, after Afghanistan, how could we ever trust America with Joe Biden in charge? Do you think some of that damage has been mended? I think
some of it has been mended. I think Biden, who you referred to as Sleepy Joe very unkindly.
I don't think so, do you?
He has been saying the right things. He's been sending munitions to Ukraine, as have we, and we're top of the list of people sending munitions to Ukraine. But, of course, as we send these munitions, our stockpiles dwindle. We've got none left. We've got to spend money on them. But, yes, I think Biden has been good. I'm afraid Germany needs to look itself in the eye and say, can we really be funding Putin's war machine like this? This is disgraceful. And yes, it'll be painful for their economy. Yes, it'll be painful for their heating in the winter. But, you know, war is painful, and better this than letting Putin continue on his march.
Do you believe that if the territory of Estonia was violated by the Russian army, that America would come to Estonia's defence?
I do, actually, yes, I do.
And is that the message that will come from the NATO summit tomorrow?
I hope so. God, I hope so. But I'm afraid, as you've already identified, one or two of the key players, particularly Germany and France, are weak.
Wobbly, to say the very
Wobbly,
least.
if you like. Yes, absolutely.
Lord Robathan, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Keep on fighting for British Armed Forces, please.